If you have a high prescription, which I'm going to classify as being above plus or minus 4 diopters of power, here are some tricks to help you keep the lens weight and thickness down. For starters, you will definitely want to consider a thinner and lighter lens material. A high index plastic lens bends light more than a basic plastic or a polycarbonate lens does. What that means is that you need less lens to get the same amount of prescription correction power than you do in a basic plastic lens. When it comes to the frame, consider going with a smaller eye size, a rounder shape, and a slightly thicker frame, like a plastic frame over a metal frame. You want a smaller eye size in the frame because the further you get away from the optical center or where you look out of the lens, the thicker that lens gets, at least in a minus prescription. A rounder shape also helps keep the thickness of the lenses down and helps by hiding any sharp angles that accentuate the thickness of the lens. A thicker frame like a plastic frame masks some of the thickness of the lens because it's hidden behind the thickness of the frame. I'm going to use today's celebrity as the example. Today's celebrity wasn't known by many people, but he was a great man and a hero to me personally. That's my dad, Greg Hope. Unfortunately, my dad passed away last year after a sudden but brief battle with acute myeloid leukemia. My dad was awesome at a lot of things, but his eyes were just not so great. He had a really high prescription. Here's what his frame looked like that he had before. And check out these lenses. Super thick, right? Really thick and heavy in this frame. And here's what I put them in. Check out the lenses there. See how much thinner those are? So you can see that when these frames were picked for my dad, they just didn't consider the prescription very well. But they also didn't really consider the fit of the frame either. My dad, like myself, had a pretty small head or a small face. Particularly the distance between his eyes was a little more narrow, like my own. And that was one problem with going with this frame, is that this frame has eye size of 57. We're talking about the width of the frame here is 57 millimeters. So that's 57 on both sides here, and it has an 18 bridge. So this is a wide frame by most standards. Now, ideally, we want the eyes to be sitting close to the center horizontally in the lens. So if we have a larger eye size, we're getting the eye further away from the center of the lens. So in my dad's case, his eye would sit about right here, but look at all this space out here in the lens that is extra, not needed really for what the fit of his face was. So what I did is I put him in a smaller frame, a smaller eye size. It is rounder, not just because of the prescription, but also because of the fit of his face. This lens is a 51 eye size on each side there. So that's going to be 6 millimeters less in width than his old glasses were. That means that his eyes were a little more centered in this lens, and that makes the thickness more uniform around the edge of the lens. It just looks better. The result of putting my dad in this new frame was that the lenses weren't as thick and it fit better, so it was more comfortable for him to wear. If you have a high prescription, you could choose a big frame, but don't, unless you like having red marks on your nose and your ears and it being painful, and unless you like pushing your glasses up because they're always falling down because the lenses are so heavy. I'm just saying, do yourself a favor and pick a frame that fits your unique personality, your unique face, and your unique prescription. You're gonna thank me later. If this video was helpful for you, then subscribe below and check out my other videos on how to pick good frames for yourself. And as always, see the good.